I'm Jim Knight, co-founder of the Instructional Coaching Group, and you're listening to Coaching Conversations, where I talk with coaching experts from around the world so that all of us can learn better ways to make an unmistakably positive impact on the people around us. Well, Mark, it's great to see you. How have you been?
Good, thank you. All good here.
You have been one of my, if not the main partners over the last couple of years, just a learning partner, teaching me so much in so many different ways. And you've evolved your understanding of coaching for so long and done a lot at Patana. Now you're going to be doing more at your new school in terms of creating a coaching culture and what coaching could be. So I really wanted to talk to you and sort of get your journey from when did you first, where did the seed come from about coaching? And then how did you come to work with us? And then we did a little bit of our one-to-one work, and you also attended a lot of other things we did. So kind of talk about your journey in terms of learning about coaching and then translating those ideas into practice at Patna and where you were and where you are now and where you're going to go. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But could you tell people who are listening in a little bit about yourself, like who you are, where you're working, where you're going to work?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm a primary school teacher primarily. So I've been teaching and leading for about 30 years. Started teaching in the UK and I have moved internationally and then back to the UK as a head. And I'm now at a British international school in Bangkok called Patana, which is nearly 70 years old. It's a through school from nursery through to year 6, and there's about 2,400 children there. So I'm responsible for the curriculum and for the learning. And it's at Patana that I've started looking at developing instructional coaching across the primary school.
And I know you because you've attended our workshops, but then you were a part of a study I did on a year in a life of the coach. I bet you we've had 100 Marco Polos back and forth, like 100 each way. During the study, you were kind enough to send me messages probably 2 or 3 times a week. And your messages were just little bursts of joy every time because you so love the students you work, and you say, "Oh, it's just in the class and you should have seen what I saw or today." And then sometimes you'd be painted up like the Hulk, or you'd be dressed up in some kind of clothing for the kids. And so I'm just grateful for the joy you brought to my life. You gave me a lot, maybe more than anybody else professionally. I mean, I have a great team and lots of people I work with, but man, you have brought so much joy to me just telling me about what you're doing. So I'm grateful to have this time to talk.
Yeah, well, it's gorgeous to share, Jim. I mean, you've done so much for me. I've learned so much about the instructional coaching from you and your practice and your research, and it's just changing lives. It's changes children's lives, which is what the exciting thing is. And to have that little conversation on a Friday, mainly after coming out of the nursery with you, is probably the highlight of my week. And it's your practice that I'm putting in there, which is making it even better for the children. So huge thanks to you, everything that you do, which has really had an impact.
Well, everything I do is a product of people like you. So I learn from other people and I learn from my mistakes. That's kind of what we do. So where did you get the bug? How did you first? I'd sort of like this to be the story of a person who knows coaching, who's embraced it, who's going to be a coaching leader, is a coaching leader. Where did it all start? When did you say, I think I want to learn more about coaching?
Well, it was back in the UK when I was a head gym. It was a small school, only 100 children, just less than 100 children, and I was asked to join a teaching academy or a group, and in that I learned how to facilitate really. I think they were calling it transformational coaching at that point in time, which is basically, facilitated coaching, and loved it. Just saw how it really changed the way that aspiring leaders could have a pathway to get better for themselves, but get better in the classroom. But also at that same time, the authority, which is like your district, asked me to be a local leader of education, and then in the schools, I've been working with heads that were in schools that were required to improve or unsatisfactory, called Tosted, and they were coaching conversations, but they were so different, Jim. They were deeper, and they had to be strategic for those heads. So it was the opposite end of both spectrums. Really, you've got these really energized leaders who were aspirational and these amazing leaders who just needed the support with strategic growth. So that's where I really sort of got into my coaching. And for 4 years, I was able to do that as well as teaching as a head. Yeah, so I didn't know anything about instructional coaching, which made it difficult for me to take it into the school. And then it wasn't really until I went to Thailand. And to be honest, Jim, it was during COVID. I was in a 15-day quarantine. And I had this yellow book that a friend asked me to read, which was by a guy called Tom Sherrington. And his teaching walkthroughs was the first introduction for me on how strategies could be used around this coaching system called instructional coaching. And I got out of the quarantine and I sat down with my principal at the start of the year, and I just said, listen, we need to start looking at this and see what we can do for our school, for our children. And we built a relationship with Tom. And through that book, you're in there, obviously, because it's all around the impact cycle. And that's how I really started getting into the instructional coaching. That's how I then start learning about what you were doing, Jim. And it wasn't until we were sort of halfway through the year, I had to work out a plan of how we could do it. So it was first of all building the team, which was our middle leaders, then building a timeline where we ring fence time for them to have the conversations, and also ring fence time to explain what coaching was, Jim, because the school didn't really understand it and know what the differences were between different styles, but what exactly instructional coaching was. And that's why your impact cycle was so huge for us, because it really broke it down quite beautifully. And over that year, we upskilled our middle leaders so that they were all coaching each other and coaching their teams. And they were loving it. And the impact it was having was absolutely incredible on them, but also on the fact that they were taking the time to really see what learning was looking like in the classroom. And that's when we decided just to explore what instructional coaching was. And I started getting hooked on it all, but realized I didn't know enough. I had to go deeper. And I was fortunate to do your 16-week instructional intensive coaching online at 2 o'clock each morning. And that just opened it up to me, Jim. You know, what you were saying, the strategies that we could use to be able then to share that with the team at school just started moving it forward for us as a school. And by the end of the year, we suddenly said, well, is this something that we want to move forward with? And everybody was in agreement that they did across the primary school. So 8 form entry right the way through were being coached around exactly what was happening inside their classroom. And then we set it into a system where we said, right, we've sort of explored it. We want to engage with it. So we formalized it a little bit. And I think a great thing that happened, Jim, is that we agreed that at one point we had a performance management or an appraisal system. And then we decided to move away from that and have a professional growth. And your impact cycle was at the heart. And that impact cycle then said, the children are at the heart. Let's find out exactly what they need. And that's when we really started to get quality learning opportunities, I think, across the whole school. So that's how it all began. And it's just sort of moved on year after year. So we're moving into the 4th year now. And there's been hiccups, but we're moving into the 4th year. We have got an instructional coach across the school now. She's working with myself on refining what we've got. We've been incredibly ambitious and had cycles across each term, but realized that the quality of the conversations and the flow wasn't as good as it should be, because the leaders were finding it difficult to find the time. So we've refined it into 1 or 2 cycles with much more time in that time to have those conversations, and make sure that we're now actually collecting data that's measurable, data that means a lot. And our video that we're using is a huge part of that for our either our cognitive or our behavioral or our social engagement for the children. Because academics, we can look at their books. Academics, we can see what their test results are saying, which is great. having that video evidence, Jim, I think has been one of the most valuable things that we've done as a school. Because I know you say this, but it's so true. The teachers can really see what they can't see on that video. And that's where the conversation really goes deeply. And that's where they can start really identifying what those children need, not what they think those children need. And that's when we as instructional coaches can talk to them about the playbook, talk to them about strategies, and come up with the right, what we feel and they feel is the right way of moving forward for the children, and then constantly keep improving it. And if it's not video, we've started videoing conversations with the students and having student interviews, and that's been massively powerful. We also did that close watch, that little bit of study that we did with yourself, and that's been quite wonderful for those hidden children, those children that you don't really know a huge amount about. And I must admit, we haven't done a lot of work on that. Our early years have, because that's almost their bread and butter all the time. But in our older students, we've looked at some children where the teachers really don't know what they need to do to support those children. But by spending that 10 or 15 minutes literally observing their habits and their ways, we've been able to identify tiny things like, a movement in place of who they sit next to. One young girl had her teacher giving her 2 or 3 minutes of his time in each lesson to really find out what that child needed. The change in her attitude and in learning was incredible, just by us looking at how we felt about that child and why we felt the way that child was possibly feeling. So that close watch was a wonderful thing that you shared with us, that we've looked at, not hugely, but we've looked at, and it's had a big impact on a number of children in the school.
And the close watch, just for anybody who's listening, it's a process where a coach can teach the class and the teacher can watch the students and look at each student and say, what is that student feeling? What does that student need? How do I feel about that student? Where do my emotions come from? Just to think about each student carefully and look at one, then look at the next, look at the next, and keep track of that information. You also did a little bit of work with what I call interaction analysis, where you were looking at your interactions. You analyze your own. I know as you did that, and you've tried other things. One thing I'm wondering, Mark, is this is a bit of a leading question, I suppose, and I've got a couple of them here around this. But how important was, now you've seen the institute virtually?
Yeah.
And was that during COVID?
Yes. So we had 16 weeks during COVID where I
Okay.
for the institute.
That's hard to believe. It's that long ago. So then you came to Korea and you watched the 5-day institute in Korea. Then I came to, as if that wasn't enough, I came to Bangkok. We did it at your school. We did the 5-day institute there. So you've had a chance to see it 3 different times. What? How do I ask this? How important is it to have a pretty deep knowledge of the coaching and the 7 success factors and those kind of things? I know it's a bit of a leading question, and it's pretty hard for you to say, it was a waste of my time. I really wish I'd only done the virtual one. It could have been done in so it's hard for you. But honestly, what was your take on the importance of knowledge about coaching when you're directing coaching?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the career one, Jim, was your definitive guide. It was the 2-day, and that was
Oh,
massively
that's right.
powerful.
Right.
And oh, the first question, what's the importance of them all? Do you know, Jim, I would come to every 5-day, every time you delivered it anywhere, because every time it gives you more and more and more depth and understanding. And love the virtual one because we broke out, and I love the fact that I was with American coaches because it was a completely different mindset for me to understand that. But the one that you did at Patana, which was face to face, first of all, you were there face to face, which was really, really valuable because we had your attention all the time and we really were able to use your knowledge and understanding. But that interaction with those other coaches was incredible. And the actual the whole course, even though it's the same, it's not, because you change it, Jim, and you helped us see things slightly differently, and then you steered it in the direction that we needed. And for me, it just reaffirmed things. It helped me understand things better. It gave me more ideas of how to move forward with things. You know, if you did it tomorrow, Jim, and you were back at Patna, I'd be fighting to come and see it, because it just makes it even better for you as a coach. And then the important thing is, then you are so desperate to share that with the coaches within your school, because it's powerful. It's massively powerful, and it just reaffirms why we need to be using instructional coaching for our children, and how it changes the way learning looks for
Mhm.
them, but also how it grows a teacher, because their skill set gets so much better because they really listen. They really feel listened to as a coachee, which is so valuable. I mean, all children want is 2 or 3 minutes of your time as a teacher. That's all a teacher wants: 2 or 3 minutes of somebody's time to hear them and help them. And that's what your intensive course does, Jim. It allows you to have the skills to be able to do that and share that with others. So absolutely amazing what I saw on the virtual, but also on the face to face. And next time you do it again in Patna in November, I'd love to be there to do it again with you.
Well, I hope so. I won't be right for me to come to Bangkok and not see you. So that's definitely gonna. Do you think there was a value in the one-to-one coaching we did? We did it kind of sporadically, but we would talk through about different things. And as I recall, we started to rethink what the goals would look like and where the goals came from and some other aspects of coaching. What was the impact of that follow-up one-to-one coaching?
Yeah, do you know, Jim? I think that's one of the strongest things that I've done with you. I love the day in the life of the coach, because that allowed me to analyze what I was
Mm.
doing, and also we got some great case studies with Pim and the Thai curriculum. But that sort of 10-week thing that we did, one coaching session after a Thai, and broke down the impact cycle, was really important for me to talk through what I was doing. But I think the thing for me was working with Katie and with Alice, because I was recording what we were doing, really watching how we were as I was as a coach, they were as coaches. They were very willing for it to happen, but it really helped me hone down the finite parts of an instructional coaching cycle, and realize that what we had been doing is more or less putting 4 sections together in one. But when I did the work with you, Jim, I realized that we needed to slow it down, and our conversations didn't have to be as long, but they just had to be quite regular. So, the initial conversation was great, but that helped us look at reality, which then made us go in and take some video, which then made us check that, so the fact that we broke it down much more slowly gave us shorter conversations, but really deep quality conversations. And I've changed the way I coach around those 10 weeks, Jim. And I still coach Alice and I still coach Katie a year later, and they still ask me to, which I was very privileged to feel that way. But I get so much out of what I'm doing with them. But what they're doing is absolutely incredible. But because we're doing bit by bit, and some weeks I'll touch base with Katie and say, "Are we chatting today?" And she said, "Do you know, Mark? Don't need you today. I'm on track. I just need you to know I've done this, this, and this. Let's meet next week." And then we can come back into it quite easily and go on to the next step. So that was a really valuable. I know it was only a 10-week thing that we did, Jim, but that was one of the most valuable things for me as a professional, for me as a coach, but to have impact on how things were happening. And Katie and Alice coach now as well, so they started breaking it down into much shorter sections as well. And it's what we're trying to do across the school to make it more manageable.
Well, your vision of coaching expanded from that too, because you attended the Introduction to Leadership Coaching workshop, and then you started to work with Chris Monroe on leadership coaching. He's actually in Bangkok at Patna today and presented earlier today. Um, so, uh, tell me about that. How did it evolve into not just the impact cycle, but also having principals learn a coaching approach to leadership and a broader picture around how coaching could be um, woven across the whole school?
Leadership coaching was a gap that I guess in year 2, year 3 that we could see in the school. It's part of an expectation, leadership coaching, but again, Jim, it's not instructional coaching, it's not dialogical, and it really took me back to to Baberham when I was ahead in the UK, and that's the sort of coaching that I used to do, and it's the sort of coaching that I was doing with my leaders anyway. So to do the introduction to leadership coaching was so refreshing because it really helped me um, see again a different way of coaching, but still very related to instructional coaching, Jim. Um, so having done, I think it was 6 weeks that you did with Brian, didn't you? Which was online as well.
Right.
And having gone through that, it gave me really a new toolkit to work with. So I was able to take that back into school and work with our leaders and look at how we could grow a model around it. Um, to be honest, it hasn't really grown until now. Now that we've had that conversation with yourself and with Chris, now that Chris is there, he's working with our CPL leaders. We're looking at programs of how that will grow across the school. But it's a different conversation that we realize we need to have, and it's needed, after training, and it's needed for growing leaders, needed for developmental areas of the school and strategic areas of the school. So it will work in parallel with instructional coaching, but it's something that's going to be quite essential for the school to move forward.
Yeah, I think one way to think about it is that coaching is a learning conversation, and that conversation can happen in lots of ways. It can be the growth approach to coaching. It could be the impact cycle. It could be, as Chris and John Campbell have written about in their new book, Growth Talk, it could be a 5-minute conversation that just turns on a couple good questions, some good listening. So it becomes, and we are excited about the idea of students coaching each other, them learning the coaching skills and asking good questions and coming kind of allies for each other as they do what they do, and even maybe training parents to take a coaching approach to parenting and having teachers learn how to use the grow coaching models, the growth coaching models to help them in their parent teacher conversation. So I think it's a we use the term mutually humanizing form of conversation where both parties feel better for having had the conversation. It's not something you do to someone else. And there are things you have to do. There are things that have to be done and have to be told. But more often than not, you'll get a much better result if you honor the capacity of the other person to think for themselves instead of just forcing yourself on them. That's the essence of it. So can you give me a success story? It could be Pim or someone else, just a success story. Pim and you became a big part. I think it was a data rules is where we wove
Yeah,
into the book. So
yeah.
you're like one of the heroes in data rules. But it
Pim's
could
the
be
hero.
anything that comes to mind, a success story you've experienced. You've got lots of them. So what's one that comes to mind?
Yeah, well, I think you're right, Jim. Pim's probably the big success story. And yesterday I sat with Pim in Chris's coaching session, and it was just wonderful to be with her again. I mean, for me, the success in that was that you know, we had an incredible, she is the head of our Thai department, and she was so vulnerable that she opened herself up to say, Mark, please come and coach me because I want to make the learning better for these students. She was out of her comfort zone. As you know, she's a year 12, year 13 teacher, and she was teaching 7, 8 year olds. So we were going in to look at how we could make that learning even better. And over the course of, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, we worked so closely together on improving things. And from the very beginning, that initial video, which just showed where she was, to that final video, which just showed amazing established expectations, great behavioral engagement, high cognition of these children, stretch, wonderful think, pair, share, talk. Pim was facilitating around groups, and by the end of many of our sessions, she was so highly engaged with what was happening. She was really energized with what she was doing. And the powerful thing, Jim, she was the head of the Thai department, and then her team saw her doing this, which meant that they were inspired. And then all her team then came on a training program that we put together, a 3-week training program for anybody who wanted to become a coach in the school who wasn't a middle leader. And they've all learned how to coach one another because they saw the power of it. So I think for me that was a massive success. We were collecting data together. We were analyzing where we were going with the children, translated it across into another class. And then, we talked about it, and thankfully, I think you could see what power was behind that, and I think, in chapter 4.
It did ended up in chapter 4. And she saw such great gains. And the issue with Pim was that she had skills for working with older teachers. She was super skilled, but now she was working with a whole different group of students. And as head, she was put in that position, but she didn't know what to do. So she watched on video, and it kind of transformed the way she taught, the level of engagement on the part of the kids. And then she went on to give a presentation on instructional coaching as a result of the impact it had on her.
Yeah. Then she gave a presentation, which is amazing, to other Thai school leaders in Bangkok over last summer, all around instructional coaching and the power behind it all, and what she'd learned from it. And obviously, Tom's strategies, which is our playbook that we follow, were introduced as well. But thing that she then wanted to share that with other schools, and not international schools, I'm talking Thai schools in Bangkok, which is so powerful. So yeah, she's quite a very special person, and I think she's probably she's the success behind something that we've done in school.
Mm. That's quite wonderful. Now, one last question is, what's the impact been on you, all this work around coaching? You probably more than anyone else have been immersed in work with me. As I said, we did about 100 messages each back and forth during the year in the life of the coach research. We did one-to-one coaching. When I led the introduction to leadership with Brian Sappet, you were attended there. You attended the Virtual Institute, 2 days in Korea, or maybe it was 3 days. Anyway, 2 days in Korea, Bangkok, and then we've had lots of conversations since. So how's that landed with you?
How's everything landed with me? Do you know what? It's changed the way I look at teaching and learning. I've learned so much and I've grown so much. I've been teaching and leading for 30 years, Jim, but I'm still learning so much because of it all. And it's still changing every single day. I mean, I'm on the CAPS with Chris and GCI. Again, there's so many things from there I'm learning right now that I'm thinking, gosh, I want to bring that in to allow this to happen, to support the children around this. And it still reinforces the children at the heart of everything, despite the skills around it all. And that's the most powerful thing. It never lets me forget it's all about the children. And that's what your work and particularly the instructional coaching, the impact cycle, is all about. It's the children. Whenever I ever sit down with people, and rarely it happens if anybody pushes back on coaching, but you can just actually sit down with them and say, come on, it's all about the children. It's all about them. How are we going to make it better for them? What do you need? How can I support you? And make the time, which I'll build the time for them. And they are delighted to talk about the children. They want to make everything better for them. So how's it impacted on me? Well, it's changed my life as a teacher, and I'll always be a teacher. It's changed the lives of many children, because our teachers are changing their lives by just what they're doing, how they're thinking, how they're approaching it, and actually understanding how they can change their lives, Jim, by being instructional coaches, and how to use strategies just to make things better.
Hmm. Well, I want to just say a couple words of thanks to you for anybody who might be listening to this. When I was in university, I did this radio program, and I was on for 3 hours every week. I spent all kinds of time figuring out what I was going to play. And then they told me in December, actually, nobody heard anything you did. After all the planning of what songs to play, the whole thing, they said, actually, nobody heard it. And so when you write, I think sometimes you're afraid, I don't know if this work will have any impact, or if anybody will read it or
Mm.
use it or whatever you'll do when you put these ideas out there in the world. So it's been so great to be validated by you, because the way you take the ideas and you use them. So I'm really profoundly grateful for you helping me move forward. And you've done it in a couple of ways. One of them is you've taught me a lot about things like the close watch and interactive analysis and instructional coaching. But mostly what you've done is you've validated for me what education can be, because your joy in watching kids learn. It might be just
Mm.
one little thing with a 3-year-old or whatever. They just today, for the first time, they did this little thing. You can't wait to tell me that joy. Well, maybe you can wait, but you always feel, what's happening. And I'm so grateful for the validation and the positive energy you've injected into my life. So thank you so much for all you're doing. And now you're moving on to a new school. You got a new future to keep spreading it, but we remain colleagues and friends for a long time so we can keep spreading the word. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I mean, that 2, 3-year-old Jim that I see every Friday, I look at them differently because of you and your work. And I catch myself doing it, thinking, what can I do to help that child make their life even better? And it's all down to what you've helped me learn. So huge thanks to you. You're amazing. And just you being a great person, Jim. I mean, to be able to talk to you is very special, and it fills me with a lot of energy. So, yeah, I want to keep the friendship. I want to keep the talking, and I'm going to keep the learning from you, which is amazing. So, thank you.
Well, it's mutual. We're learning from each other. Mark, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have a part two sometime down in the future as things can continue. I hope I get to see you in, I think it's in November when I'm going to be in Bangkok.
Yeah,
I really hope I see
yeah.
you.